All right, my next guest is a longtime, very close friend of Charlie Kirk's. He was also a media mentor to Charlie. He's a longtime friend of mine as well. Let's welcome back to the show. He's been on previously. He is the current CEO and founder of Krave News, cravenews.com. And that's hard for me to say is the straight face. He's the founder of National Lampoon Comedy Radio Network. Let's welcome Kent Emmons. Kent, good to see you.
Brother Rick, always great to see you. How are you?
Doing terrific, thank you.
Super.
Otherwise, Kent, how did you were a good friend of Charlie's, you were a media mentor. How did you first learn of the news that he had been shot?
I'd been in Asia, as had Charlie. We were in two different places the weekend before,
Hmm.
and I'd flown back to DC really just for 2 days. We had a thing that Scott Bessent had done for Art Laffer, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Laffer Curve. So I was back in DC coincidentally, and we'd had that thing the night before at the Department of Treasury. And the next day had several meetings and had been over in John Solomon's office actually for meetings late in the morning on that Wednesday morning and early afternoon. And his office, as you know, is just a couple of blocks from the White House. I had walked over to the White House and uh, Secret Service told a group of us that Charlie had been shot.
Hmm.
And so we left there, went over to Old Ebbitt's Grill, just to, just really just we prayed and had lunch. And we probably found out, an hour and a half before the general public did that Charlie had been called home. But that was how a group of us, found out.
You mentioned John Solomon. Ironically, he's the one who introduced me to Charlie Kirk some time ago.
Well, he's to me the greatest news guy out there. And he's a friend to the conservative movement and friend to common sense and just a great guy. And of course, Charlie loved him very, very much.
Uh, how often did you interact with Charlie?
Say again?
How often did you interact with Charlie?
Quite often, going back, it was interesting. The way I met Charlie was back in 2016 and 17. He was really starting to get a little bit of momentum. And, he'd reached out to a lot of us who were, in the Republican, conservative movement for mentorship and advice and support and that type of thing. And there were a lot of folks that really jumped on board with him and really backed him. And so, it goes way back, back then. And a lot of it has to do, back then was a lot of fundraising so he could get things built. And it was interesting, I had to leave Old Ebbitt's Grill and get back on a plane to Asia. And, 15 hours of flight. And I just started looking back at my texts because I've got them all dating back to 15, 16, I guess to 16, 17. And it was interesting, thinking about, how Charlie, one, how he grew this movement, but two, just his character and how that played into it as well. And I was going back, Charlie, of course, terrific fundraiser, but always very responsible with money. And we were in New York, I remember quite a few times, but back in 2017, one of these texts, Charlie was always saving money up until the last day. He was an amazing steward of his donors' money. And I had turned him onto an app called Hotel Tonight, and he and I were in New York and doing some fundraising and some media stuff. And one of the texts I screenshotted, it was just classic, was, "You're not going to believe this. I got the Sofitel for $98." He was so excited, So, and he was just a great guy, and he was always sweet and kind, and we could reach out to him whenever we needed. He would always reach out to us, and just some of these wonderful texts. And one of them was, "I love our time together. It's like a master's in marketing and politics." And he was just funny and a good guy, and probably more character in his little finger than most of us have in our entire body. Just a great guy.
You've told us a lot of very interesting and informative things about Charlie that I think a lot of people may not have known. The money and the character and his one little finger, if so to speak. But is there something that you'd like to tell our viewers that about Charlie Kirk that perhaps they would surprise them that they may not have known about him?
Not really. I mean, I think what you see is what you get. He is a great patriot, great American, loved the Lord, just, very kingdom driven in what he did. I think that was pretty obvious. I think it's shocking to me how when you look at the media, how they talk about, oh, he was this, speaking hate and this and that. He was the opposite of that. I mean, he was absolutely the opposite. And he loved those people he debated with. He may not have agreed with them, but he loved them. I would see him debate him and give him a hug right after, after the thing. And they would say, gosh, Charlie, you were so respectful. I still don't agree with you, but you respected me and that kind of thing. And the people that are spewing some of this stuff, I just don't understand it because it just doesn't make sense. It's kind of like back, when President Trump decided to run for office, they would say, oh, he's a racist, a homophobe, a
Yeah.
xenophobe. Well, at the end of the day, I mean, what people didn't talk about, first of all, that's all nonsense. He's a great guy, great American. And, the president in his private companies had more minorities working for him than the average Fortune 500 company.
Hmm.
I mean, way more. And so, I mean, this is a guy that he's not a diversity guy like, most people are, oh, you got to have DEI and stuff like that. He's a guy that says, I'm going to hire the best people. Obviously, look what he's done with this current administration. This has been the greatest cabinet. We were all together at Charlie's funeral last weekend. This has been the greatest cabinet and greatest administration I think we've ever had. So again, it's what these people spew about hatred and this and that is just 100% opposite. It's just kind of crazy, actually.
Yeah, and you brought up a good analogy of how they spewed hatred towards Trump, and it's almost identical to how they've tried to label Charlie Kirk. That's a great analogy, Kent. Kent, there's a rumor going around that you could be the future U.S. ambassador to the Philippines. And I hear you saying you're going back and forth to.
I do go back and forth a lot. I've heard that rumor, and all I can tell you is, look, I'll continue to serve this administration in any way I can that brings value. This administration has brought America back, and the Philippines are a very important part of this country, and whether it be trade or military or whatever. So I'm delighted to serve in any way that I'm asked to do. Absolutely.
All right, well, we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. Any final comments on Charlie Kirk, Kent?
No, again, I think what you see is what you get. He was just a wonderful, wonderful guy, and a guy that we all knew would eventually be president and probably be one of the best. And it was, he was one of these guys that, he called us for mentorship years and years and years ago, and we mentored him all these years. And within a few years, though, he was really mentoring us. I mean, he was mentoring senators and President Trump and some of these, amazing leaders. Charlie, in his 20s, was mentoring us
That's amazing.
up until the last day. And
That's
he was
amazing.
an amazing guy.
Yeah, that's quite a story. And I really appreciate you sharing that, Kent, because no one talks about that. And it's an amazing story.
Yeah, I mean, he really was something else, one of a kind.
All right, Kent Emmons, CEO, founder of Krave News, the founder of National Lampoon Comedy Radio Network, and someone who's being rumored, that's what I'm hearing, to be perhaps a future U.S. ambassador to the Philippines. We'll find out in time.
Those crazy grapevines.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, brother Rick. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hmm.